Welcome to today's Explainer. We are diving straight into the foundational documents in the project Bible for a really ambitious video game concept. It's called Anatognet Matrial-Arts. Basically, picture a high-octane psychological thriller prequel set in this incredibly gritty cyberpunk dystopia. We're following the origin story of our protagonist, Phili, a streetwise hacker known online as Your Mind. And this is set before she fully realizes her destiny as Astra. So in this world, the entire population is trapped under a state-sponsored mind control grid. And the only way to actually break free from this invisible psychological prison is through the raw, unfiltered adrenaline of physical brawling. Today, we're going to walk through the mechanics, the lore, and the artistic vision that makes this studio pitch so captivating. Honestly, if you're into game design or world building, this is a masterclass in weaving heavy psychological themes directly into player mechanics.
Right off the bat, the title of the game itself, Matriarchs, is this brilliant linguistic twist. It combines matriarchy and martial arts. In the lore, there's a secretive organization called TEMPT, and they run these underground fight clubs that act as a frontline recruitment funnel. But these are not your average fight clubs. They're built entirely on the principles of a protective matriarchy, completely throwing out state-mandated gender stereotypes. By focusing on that matriarchal protection, these clubs are essentially a direct ideological counterstrike. It's a sanctuary where women train to protect each other's minds and completely reject the patriarchal structure of the deep state's grid.
Here is our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start by setting the stakes in Anatognet, then break down the matrial-Arts recruitment funnel, the chaotic combat of Murderball, the CIA tension mechanics, Phili's campaign progression, and finally, we'll visualize the retail cover art.
Before we get into the heavy gameplay mechanics, I want you to really visualize the world we're stepping into. The visual style mapped out in these source documents is absolutely striking. We're talking high contrast, cel-shaded cyberpunk aesthetics, but heavily mixed with these explosive manga-ink splash textures. Picture incredibly deep, grungy, matte black environments acting as a dark canvas, and then, suddenly, vivid neon purples violently cut right through the darkness during combat. It is a gritty, stylized look that perfectly captures the rebellious, underground vibe of the game.
Welcome to Anatognet, setting the stakes in a cyberpunk dystopia. Let's look at the world our protagonist is fighting against.
To really understand the gameplay, we have to understand the in-universe threat, which is known as the Mullic net. In this fictional lore, the state had artificial intelligence long before the public ever knew, and they've been using it alongside mind wave reading and voice-to-skull technology to basically force mental compliance. The developers actually drafted a classified weaponized history for this tech, so during World War II, early wave-reading prototypes were used to intercept command decisions. In the Vietnam War, primitive voice-to-skull tech projected ghost voices to induce psychological collapse. Over in the Middle East, the neural mold was tested for mass compliance to suppress insurgents. And finally, in Venezuela, the tech was integrated with decentralized crypto ledgers to siphon local wealth. It sets up a world where trauma and poverty are intentionally maintained to keep everyone's cognitive defenses as low as possible.
Section 2, the martial arts recruitment funnel, breaking the mind mold. This is exactly where our protagonist, Phili, enters the fray.
Okay, let's look at the core gameplay loop and see how this all builds. This is TEMPT's physical scouting funnel. Folio, who actually has a natural cognitive immunity to the mind grid, enters this pipeline. It all kicks off with training in these specialized, hidden Philadelphia gyms under incredibly brutal female coaches. From there, the game pushes you into underground clubs for intense, raw brawling. Once you conquer that, you escalate to dominating hyper-hardcore Murderball tournaments. And all the while, between matches, you are fighting off CIA paranoia and recruitment attempts. The absolutely crucial point here is that physical combat and raw adrenaline act as a biological shield. They literally jam and burn out the neural tracking frequencies of the Mullic net. You physically have to fight to remain mentally free.
Section 3, Murderball, chaotic tactical combat. As Phili progresses, the fights scale up dramatically.
The game features two very distinct phases of combat. It starts with underground club brawling, which is this deep, technical, hand-to-hand combat that relies heavily on parrying, dodging, and heavy physical sparring. It feels incredibly intimate and up close. But as you advance, the game throws you into Murderball tournaments. The evolution here is massive. You're transitioning from tight street fighting to grand-scale arena combat. This demands high-speed tactical mastery, utilizing weaponry to blind targets before executing lightning-fast, close-quarters combat takedowns.
So what exactly is a Murderball match? Well, it's the game's most visceral action set piece. You are playing on all-female teams, facing off against massive, highly trained male squads. The combat mechanics are this crazy hybrid of tactical paintball weaponry and brutal hand-to-hand combat. You use your marker firearms not to kill, but to paint and completely blind your targets. Once the enemy's vision is totally obscured by a huge splash of neon paint, you close the distance and finish them with lightning-fast CQC takedowns. It's this chaotic, adrenaline-fueled rush that demands strategic positioning and flawless brawler reflexes.
Section 4. The CIA surveillance threat. The tension mechanics. Because the physical combat isn't the only thing trying to break you in this game.
It's really fascinating how the game uses political antagonists strictly as narrative tension mechanics in the universe. Throughout the game, hidden CIA agents, who are operating for a fictional, corrupt vice president named Ronald Dump, observe every single match. They are constantly trying to get TEMPT members to turn. Between events, these handlers will actively try to break your morale, offering wealth, safety, or new tech if you just sell out your team and reveal their secrets. But here is the brilliant gameplay hook. If you refuse to turn on your team, the global threat level spikes. That dynamic refusal directly impacts your next match, altering map layouts and triggering hostile environmental traps, because the state is actively trying to punish your disobedience.
Section 5. Phili's campaign progression. From Street Fighter to Astra. Let's trace how the narrative actually unfolds for our player character.
The campaign escalates across 3 major phases. It starts intimately with the funnel intake in those hidden athletic clubs, where defeating an elite coach unlocks Phili's signature dual combat styles. From there, the stakes are raised in Phase 2 as she enters the grand-scale Murderball tournament circuit we just talked about. But the true climax hits in Phase 3, the threat threshold. The tension totally boils over as the CIA stops playing mind games and launches kinetic, real-world strike forces to kidnap Phili. This all leads to a massive stadium brawl climax right before TEMPT can extract her.
Now, a crucial point in Phase 2's design is this incredibly unique environmental hazard. In the lore, Phil's own apartment is wired by the deep state to physically assault her. The floor will actually dip and tilt to punish her when she resists the Moloch net. Well, the developers incorporated this directly into the Murderball arenas as a gameplay variation. You aren't just fighting massive enemy squads, you are fighting a deeply paranoid, hostile environment. You have to constantly manage your footing during intense firefights as the floor zones literally shift and tilt beneath you. It's just a brilliant way to make the game's lore physically tangible to the player. Section 6. Visualizing the cover art, packaging the rebellion. How do you summarize all of this onto a retail box?
The studio pitch actually includes a vivid directive for the physical and digital retail packaging, and it perfectly captures that high-contrast aesthetic and the matrial-Arts ideology. Walk through this with me. Dead center is Phili, looking bruised but highly defiant. Her dual life is represented visually. On one side, you have gritty ink sketches of women sparring in the funnel, and on the other, explosive neon purple paintball splashes from Murderball capturing male combatants in the crosshairs. The whole piece is framed by a faint digital brainwave scanner, warning you of the tracking grid, and it is all anchored by an actual scannable cryptographic QR code right at the bottom.
Stamped boldly right over that scannable QR code on the cover art is a single powerful phrase: choose sovereignty. It perfectly summarizes the ultimate goal of the game's faction, TEMPT. They aren't trying to save the world. They realize the system is way too deeply ingrained for that. Their goal is an absolute exodus, to completely flee the corrupted grid and form an isolated micronation that prioritizes absolute transparency and defense against mental botanists.
Which brings us to the ultimate question this game asks of its players. Do you have the mental resilience to reject the grid, fight through the physical pain of the matrial-Arts funnel, and choose sovereignty? It's a really fascinating look at how intense, underground lore can be translated directly into visceral brawler and tactical gameplay mechanics. Anatognet Matrial shapes up to be a completely unique take on the cyberpunk genre, blending heavy psychological themes with high-speed, adrenaline-pumping combat. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.